The wind howled through the narrow streets of Telluride, Colorado, carrying autumn leaves in swirling eddies as Catherine Zimmerman clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders. At 20 years old, she had never imagined she would be standing alone with a carpetbag at her feet, one hand resting protectively over her still flat belly, watching the retreating backs of her family as they abandoned her to the unforgiving frontier. It was September 1877, and the mining boom had transformed this mountain town into a place of opportunity for many, but for Catherine, it had become the site of her greatest shame and perhaps her only hope. "You are no longer our daughter," her father's final words echoed in her mind, cutting deeper than the cold mountain air. "No daughter of mine carries a bastard child." Catherine blinked back tears, refusing to give in to despair. The child growing inside her was innocent, regardless of how society viewed its conception. She had loved William, believed his promises of marriage before he rode off to Denver and never returned. Now, 3 months with child and disowned by her prominent family, she had nowhere to go in a town where reputation was currency. "Miss, you planning on standing there till you freeze solid?" The deep voice startled her from her thoughts. Catherine turned to see a tall man astride a chestnut mare. His face was partially obscured by the wide brim of his hat, but she could make out a strong jawline shadowed with stubble. His clothes marked him as a rancher, or perhaps a hired hand worn leather chaps over denim, a blue cotton shirt beneath a weathered vest. "I'm perfectly fine, thank you," she replied, straightening her back despite the weariness that threatened to overtake her. The stranger's eyes, a startling blue against his sun-bronzed skin, took in her situation with a single sweep. The carpetbag, her trembling hands, the stiff posture of someone trying desperately to hold themselves together. "Name's Noah Kendrick," he said, dismounting with fluid grace that spoke of years in the saddle. "And no offense, madam, but you don't look fine at all." Catherine hesitated. Speaking to strange men was what had gotten her into this predicament to begin with. Yet something in Noah Kendrick's direct gaze suggested honesty, a commodity she had learned was rare. "Catherine Zimmerman," she offered, then immediately regretted giving her family name. By tomorrow, everyone in Telluride would know the Zimmermans had cast out their eldest daughter. "Where you headed, Miss Zimmerman?" Noah asked, keeping a respectful distance. "I don't know," she admitted, the words escaping before she could stop them. "My arrangements have changed unexpectedly." Noah glanced toward the grand house at the end of the street, the Zimmerman residence, where Catherine's father, Judge Harold Zimmerman, dispensed justice and moral judgment in equal measure. "Family troubles?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Catherine's chin lifted defiantly. "My family has made their position clear. I'm no longer welcome in their home." Noah's expression remained neutral, but something flashed in his eyes. Understanding, perhaps, or recognition of the particular brand of cruelty that families could inflict. "I run a small spread about 5 miles outside town," he said. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Holbrook, could use some help with the cooking and cleaning. Room and board included." Catherine eyed him suspiciously. "Why would you offer employment to a woman you just met? A woman clearly in difficult circumstances." Noah adjusted his hat, pushing it back slightly to reveal more of his face. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 26 or 27, with lines around his eyes that spoke of squinting into the distance rather than age. "Mrs. Holbrook is getting on in years, and I've got ranch hands to feed. You look like someone who needs honest work, and I need someone who can manage a household." His eyes met hers directly. "I don't much care about town gossip or what's brought you to this spot today. Can you cook?" "Yes," Catherine answered, somewhat indignant. Despite her family's wealth, her mother had insisted she learn domestic skills. Very well, in fact. A slight smile crossed Noah's face. Then I'm offering you a job, Miss Zimmerman. Nothing more, nothing less. Catherine considered her options, which were admittedly few. The stagecoach wouldn't come through for another 3 days. The hotel would likely refuse her a room once word spread of her condition and dismissal. Working as a housekeeper on a remote ranch wasn't what she had envisioned for her life, but it offered immediate shelter and distance from the whispers that would soon follow her through Telluride. Your housekeeper won't mind the arrangement? Catherine asked, still hesitant. Mrs. Holbrook has been asking for help since spring. She'll be pleased as punch. Noah reached for her carpetbag. May I? Catherine nodded, allowing him to secure her bag to his saddle. I should warn you, Mr. Kendrick, I won't be able to stay permanently. My situation will become apparent soon enough. Noah paused, his back to her, as he adjusted the saddle strap. When he turned, his expression was unreadable. Let's get you settled first, he said simply. One day at a time. He offered his hand to help her mount, and Catherine felt the callous strength of his grip as he lifted her onto the horse with surprising gentleness. She settled behind him, unsure where to place her hands until the horse moved, and instinct made her grab his waist. As they rode away from Telluride, Catherine felt the weight of the town's judgment receding. The sprawling mountains welcomed her with silent acceptance, indifferent to the social conventions that had shattered her world. Behind her lay shame and rejection. Ahead lay uncertainty. But for the moment, the steady rhythm of hoofbeats and the solid presence of this stranger who had offered help without questions gave her something she desperately needed: a reprieve from despair. The Kendrick Ranch came into view as they crested a hill, a modest but well-maintained property nestled in a valley. A main house constructed of sturdy logs stood proudly beside a large barn, with a bunkhouse visible nearby. Several corrals contained horses in various stages of training, and beyond them, cattle grazed on the autumn gold grass. It's not much compared to town living, Noah commented as they approached, but it's peaceful. It's beautiful, Catherine replied honestly. The setting sun cast the buildings in a warm glow, and the surrounding mountains provided a majestic backdrop. After the stifling constraints of Telluride society, the open space felt liberating. As they dismounted in front of the main house, a plump, gray-haired woman emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. Noah Kendrick, I expected you hours ago. The stew's been simmering so long it's practically turned to mush. Mrs. Holbrook stopped short when she noticed Catherine. And who might this be? Mrs. Holbrook, this is Miss Catherine Zimmerman. She'll be helping you with the household duties, Noah explained, passing Catherine's bag to her. Miss Zimmerman, this is Mrs. Holbrook, the finest cook in 3 counties and the woman who's kept me from living like a complete savage. Mrs. Holbrook's shrewd eyes took in Catherine's fine dress, now dusty from travel, and her pale complexion. Whatever assessment she made remained behind a polite smile. Well, Miss Zimmerman, you're a sight for these old eyes. Been telling Mr. Kendrick for months I can't manage everything alone anymore. She gestured Catherine forward. Come inside before you catch your death. Mountain air gets bitter cold once the sun drops. The interior of the house was surprisingly comfortable, simple, but clean, with sturdy furniture and touches of homeliness in the form of curtains and braided rugs. A large fireplace dominated the main room, with a dining table set for what appeared to be multiple people. Ranch hands eat here, Mrs. Holbrook explained, following Catherine's gaze. 7 of them currently. Good men, but Lord, they can eat more than a herd of locusts. I'll show you to your room, Noah said, leading the way down a short hallway. It's not fancy, but it's private. The room was small but contained a narrow bed with a handmade quilt, a wash stand, and a chest of drawers. A window looked out toward the mountains. "Thank you," Catherine said, suddenly overwhelmed by the events of the day. "This is very generous." Noah shrugged. "Get settled in. Dinner's in an hour. We can discuss your duties tomorrow." He paused at the door. "Miss Zimmerman, whatever brought you here, you're safe now." After he left, Catherine sank onto the bed, one hand again moving to her abdomen. For the first time since discovering her pregnancy, she allowed herself to cry not from despair, but from relief. She had no illusions that her troubles were over, but she had found shelter for the night, and perhaps longer. By the time Catherine composed herself and freshened up, voices in the main room indicated the ranch hands had arrived for dinner. She hesitated before entering, conscious of her red-rimmed eyes and rumpled appearance. Mrs. Holbrook spotted her hovering in the hallway. "Come, girl, help me serve these hungry men," she called, handing Catherine a large bowl of potatoes as she entered the kitchen. The ranch hands were a diverse group, some young, some weathered by years on the frontier. They nodded politely as Catherine helped serve, curiosity evident in their glances but tempered by respect. Noah sat at the head of the table, discussing cattle prices with an older man she would later learn was his foreman, Sam Harris. "Boys, this is Miss Zimmerman," Noah announced as everyone settled to eat. "She'll be helping Mrs. Holbrook from now on. I expect you all to show her the same respect you'd give your own sisters." A chorus of "yes, boss" and "madam" circled the table. Catherine nodded acknowledgement, grateful for Noah's clear establishment of boundaries. The meal passed pleasantly enough, with conversation focused on ranch business and local news. No one asked Catherine about herself, a courtesy she appreciated deeply. After dinner, the men thanked Mrs. Holbrook for the meal and filed out to the bunkhouse, while Noah retired to a small office off the main room to review ledgers. As Catherine helped clear the table, Mrs. Holbrook worked beside her in companionable silence for a while before speaking. "How far along are you, dear?" she asked quietly, hands busy with dishwater. Catherine nearly dropped the plate she was drying. I don't know what you mean." Mrs. Holbrook gave her a gentle but knowing look. "I've brought 7 children into this world and helped dozens of other women do the same. I recognize the signs." Tears threatened again, but Catherine fought them back. 3 months, I think." The older woman nodded, passing another clean plate. "And that's why you're here instead of with your family, I take it." "Yes." Catherine's voice was barely audible. Mrs. Holbrook dried her hands and turned to face Catherine fully. "Life has a way of taking unexpected turns, especially for women. I won't pry into your story, that's yours to tell or keep. But know this, you've landed in a good place. Noah Kendrick is a fair employer and a decent man. Why would he hire someone like me? Surely he must suspect." "Noah has his own history with judgment and second chances," Mrs. Holbrook said cryptically. "Rest now. Tomorrow will be busy enough." The following days established a routine. Catherine rose early to help prepare breakfast for the ranch hands, learned the rhythms of the household from Mrs. Holbrook, and gradually took on more responsibilities. The physical work was harder than anything she'd done before, but it provided a welcome distraction from her worries and helped her sleep soundly, despite her growing anxiety about the future. Noah was often absent during daylight hours, managing the ranch operations and occasionally riding into Telluride for supplies or business. When present, he was unfailingly polite but maintained a certain distance. Catherine caught him watching her sometimes with an unreadable expression, quickly masked when she met his gaze. A week after her arrival, Catherine was hanging laundry when she heard hoofbeats approaching. A town buggy pulled up, Driven by a well-dressed man she recognized with a sickening lurch Dr. Peterson, her family's physician. "Miss Zimmerman," he called, climbing down. "Your mother sent me to check on you." Catherine's hand stilled on the damp sheet. "My mother." I was under the impression I no longer had family. Dr. Peterson looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Zimmerman is concerned about your health, whatever the circumstances. She asked me to ensure you're being treated properly and to offer you this." He held out a small purse that clinked with coins. "Enough for a ticket to Denver, where there are homes for young women in your situation." The implication was clear, a place where she could birth her child in secret and give it away, then perhaps return to society with a fabricated story about visiting relatives. Catherine's hands clenched into fists. "Please tell my mother I'm quite well and I have no need of her charity," she said coldly. "As for my child, I will not abandon it as I have been abandoned." "Catherine, be reasonable." Dr. Peterson lowered his voice. "A young woman alone with an illegitimate child has no future, especially in a place like this. Think of your reputation, your family's standing." "My family made their position clear, doctor. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to finish." Dr. Peterson sighed. "At least take the money. You'll need it eventually." Before Catherine could refuse again, Noah's voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem here?" He approached from the direction of the barn, his expression carefully neutral but his posture alert. Dr. Peterson straightened. "Mr. Kendrick, I presume? I'm Dr. Peterson from Telluride. I've come to check on Miss Zimmerman's welfare." Noah came to stand beside Catherine. "Miss Zimmerman is employed here and doing well. Unless she wishes your services, doctor, I believe your visit is concluded." "You should know, Dr. Peterson said stiffly, "that Miss Zimmerman's condition is her private business," Noah interrupted. "And she's welcome here regardless." Catherine stared at Noah, startled by his implicit acknowledgement of her pregnancy and his unequivocal support. Dr. Peterson's lips thinned. "Very well. I'll inform the Zimmermans their daughter is situated." He placed the money purse on a nearby bench. "The offer remains open, Catherine. Your family would welcome you back under the right circumstances." After the doctor departed, Catherine stood frozen, staring at the cloud of dust from his buggy. "You knew," she finally said, turning to Noah. "About the baby?" Noah nodded, his eyes meeting hers directly. "Mrs. Holbrook mentioned it. I hope you don't mind." "And you're still willing to have me work here?" Catherine asked, disbelief coloring her voice. "Why wouldn't I be? You're a good worker and your condition doesn't change that." He gestured to the purse Dr. Peterson had left. "Though if you want to take their offer, no," Catherine said firmly. "I won't be sent away to hide like something shameful. This baby deserves better." Something like approval flickered in Noah's eyes. "The choice is yours. Just know you have a place here for as long as you need it." As he walked away, Catherine felt a peculiar warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time since discovering her pregnancy, someone had treated her condition not as a disgrace, but simply as a fact and offered support without judgment. That evening, as Noah worked at his desk after dinner, Catherine gathered her courage and approached him. "Mr. Kendrick," she began, "I want to thank you for your kindness today and for not sending me away when you learned of my situation." Noah looked up from his ledgers. "No thanks needed, Miss Zimmerman." "I feel I should explain. You don't owe me any explanations," he interrupted gently. "Perhaps not," Catherine persisted, "but I'd like to give one anyway." She took a deep breath. "I was engaged unofficially to William Bennett. He was a surveyor for the railroad, visiting Telluride on business. He promised to return within a month to speak to my father formally, but he never came back. By the time I realized I was carrying his child, he had moved on to somewhere in Nevada, according to his company." Noah's expression remained neutral. "Did you write to him?" "Yes." The letter was returned unopened. Catherine's voice was steady despite the humiliation the memory brought. When I told my parents, hoping for their support until I could decide what to do, my father called me. Things I won't repeat. He gave me 1 hour to pack before throwing me out. All because you believed in someone who didn't deserve your trust, Noah said quietly, Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I was foolish. No, Noah said firmly. Trusting isn't foolish. Breaking trust is the sin, not giving it. He hesitated, then added, I'm sorry you've been treated this way. Why are you different? Catherine asked. Most men would never hire an unwed mother. Noah was silent for a long moment, his fingers absently tracing a pattern on the wooden desk. I judge people by their actions and character, not by the judgment society places on them. I've been on the receiving end of those judgments myself. Mrs. Holbrook mentioned you have experience with second chances, Catherine prompted gently. A shadow crossed Noah's face. That's a story for another time, perhaps. He closed his ledger. It's getting late and you've had a trying day. Get some rest, Miss Zimmerman. As weeks passed, Catherine's pregnancy became more visible. Mrs. Holbrook adjusted her duties accordingly, ensuring she didn't strain herself while still maintaining her dignity as a contributing member of the household. The ranch hands remained respectful, though Catherine occasionally caught curious glances. October turned to November, bringing the first snows to the mountains surrounding the ranch. Catherine found herself settling into life at the Kendrick property, her fears about the future temporarily held at bay by the day-to-day rhythms of ranch life. She discovered unexpected contentment in the honest work, and simple pleasures, the spectacular sunrises, the satisfaction of a well-prepared meal, the friendly banter around the dinner table. Noah remained something of an enigma. Always polite, occasionally engaging in conversation about books or current events, but maintaining that careful distance. Yet Catherine noticed how he ensured she had the most comfortable chair by the fire in the evenings, how fresh milk always appeared despite the seasonal shortage, how he brought back small luxuries from town peppermint sticks, a new woolen shawl, a book of poetry casually explained away as things the ranch needed anyway. One evening in early December, Catherine was sitting by the fire mending shirts when Noah entered, stamping snow from his boots. A brutal storm had kept everyone close to the buildings all day. "How are the animals?" she asked, setting aside her sewing. "Secure for now," he replied, warming his hands by the fire. "Though I'm concerned about the pass to town. If this keeps up, we could be cut off for weeks." Catherine felt a flutter of anxiety. Her baby was due in early March, still months away, but the unpredictability of mountain weather was legendary. Noah seemed to read her thoughts. "Don't worry. Mrs. Holbrook has delivered half the children in the county. And I'll make sure we can get to town when the time comes, even if I have to clear the path myself." "Thank you," Catherine said softly. "You've done so much for me already." Noah shrugged off his coat and hung it by the door. "Anyone would do the same." "No," Catherine countered, "they wouldn't. My own family cast me out. You, a stranger, took me in." "Not a stranger anymore, I hope," Noah said with a small smile. "No," Catherine agreed, "not a stranger." An unexpected intimacy settled between them in the firelit room. For the first time, Catherine allowed herself to fully acknowledge the attraction she felt toward Noah, his quiet strength, his integrity, the gentleness that belied his rugged exterior. But such feelings were pointless. No honorable man would consider a relationship with a woman in her position, carrying another man's child. The moment broke when Mrs. Holbrook bustled in from the kitchen. "Storm's getting worse. Sam says the men are all settled in the bunkhouse with plenty of supplies." "Good," Noah nodded. "We should all turn in early. No telling what tomorrow will bring. The storm raged for 3 days, howling around the sturdy log house but failing to penetrate its warmth. Confined together, the three inhabitants fell into a comfortable routine. Noah worked on tack repairs and account books. Mrs. Holbrook taught Catherine to knit baby garments, and in the evenings, Noah read aloud from a collection of Washington Irving stories while the women worked on their respective crafts. It was during these quiet days that Catherine began to learn more about Noah's past. Mrs. Holbrook, loosened by enforced idleness and hot toddies, shared stories of how Noah had come to Colorado 5 years earlier. His family had a prosperous farm in Missouri, she explained while Noah was out checking the livestock one afternoon. But there was some trouble not of Noah's making, mind you, and he ended up taking the blame to protect his younger brother, left with nothing but his horse and the clothes on his back. What kind of trouble? Catherine asked. Mrs. Holbrook pursed her lips. Not my story to tell completely. But it involved a young woman, a hasty judgment, and a town too quick to condemn without facts. Noah knows what it's like to be cast out, judged unfairly. When the storm finally broke, revealing a transformed landscape of pristine white, the ranch slowly returned to normal operations. The pass to Telluride remained blocked, but the ranch was self-sufficient for essential needs. Christmas approached, bringing with it a melancholy for Catherine as she thought of previous holidays surrounded by family and friends. Despite her parents' strictness, Christmas had always been a time of warmth and celebration in the Zimmerman household. On Christmas Eve, Catherine helped Mrs. Holbrook prepare a special dinner for the ranch hands. Noah had insisted on maintaining traditions despite their isolation, and the main room was decorated with pine boughs and candles. After the meal, the men presented Catherine with a surprise, a handcrafted cradle, simply but beautifully made from polished pine. We all chipped in, Sam explained gruffly. Figured the little one would need somewhere to sleep come spring. Catherine's eyes filled with tears as she ran her fingers over the smooth wood. It's perfect. Thank you all so much. Later, after the men had returned to the bunkhouse and Mrs. Holbrook had retired, Catherine remained by the fire, unable to sleep. Noah joined her, offering a cup of hot cider. They're good men, he said, nodding toward the cradle. Yes, Catherine agreed. I never expected such kindness. People can surprise you. Noah settled into the chair opposite hers. For better or worse. Catherine studied his profile in the firelight. Mrs. Holbrook mentioned you had some trouble back in Missouri, that you left to protect your brother. Noah tensed slightly. Mrs. Holbrook talks too much sometimes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry. He sighed, relaxing again. No, it's all right. It was a long time ago. He took a sip of his cider before continuing. My brother James got involved with the daughter of the most influential man in our county. When she found herself in a family way, her father came looking for blood. Catherine's hand instinctively went to her own growing belly. What happened? James was barely 17, planning to go to college back east, had a bright future ahead of him. Noah's voice was distant, remembering. I was 22, with no particular plans beyond working our family farm, so when her father and brothers came with their shotguns, I let them believe I was responsible. You took the blame, Catherine whispered. Noah nodded. Had to leave town that night with a price on my head. My family knew the truth, but kept silent to protect both of us. Last I heard, James graduated from law school in Boston, and the girl married a store clerk from the next county over. A wry smile crossed his face. Her family was considerably less concerned about her virtue once they realized the Kendrick farm wasn't coming to them as compensation. That's why you didn't judge me, Catherine realized. You've seen how quickly people condemn. That, and I've no right to cast stones, Noah said. None of us do, though plenty forget that lesson. He looked at her directly. Your situation is different, though. You were betrayed by someone who promised to stand by you. That takes a particular kind of cowardice. Yet here I am, Catherine said softly, about to bring a child into the world alone. Not alone, Noah corrected. Unless you want to be. The words hung in the air between them, laden with meaning Catherine wasn't sure how to interpret. Before she could respond, Noah stood, taking her empty cup. Merry Christmas, Catherine, he said, using her first name for the first time since they'd met. Try to get some rest. As winter deepened, so did the connection between Catherine and Noah. They fell into the habit of talking by the fire each evening after Mrs. Holbrook retired. Catherine learned about Noah's childhood in Missouri, his dreams for the ranch, his love of literature nurtured by a schoolteacher mother. In turn, she shared stories of her own upbringing, the stifling expectations of Telluride society, her secret passion for writing stories that her father deemed frivolous, her hopes for her child's future. By February, Catherine's condition made most household tasks difficult. Mrs. Holbrook insisted she rest more, though Catherine hated feeling useless. One afternoon, frustrated by her enforced idleness, she bundled up against the cold and ventured to the barn where Noah was working. "Should you be out in this weather?" Noah asked, concerned as she appeared in the doorway. "I needed air and movement," Catherine explained, "and to feel useful. Is there anything I can help with here?" Noah hesitated, then nodded toward a stack of leather bridles. "Those need oil worked into them. You could do that by the stove there if you'd like." Grateful for the task, Catherine settled on a stool near the barn's small stove and began working the oil into the dry leather. The repetitive motion was soothing, and the barn was peaceful, filled with the soft sounds of animals and the occasional thud of Noah's hammer as he repaired a stall door. "You're good at that," Noah commented after watching her work for a while. "Most city folks don't have the patience for it." "My grandfather raised horses before moving to Telluride to invest in mining," Catherine explained. "He taught me about caring for tack when I was little, before my mother decided it wasn't a suitable interest for a young lady." "What would she think of you now?" Noah asked, setting down his tools and coming to sit near her. Catherine laughed softly. "Living on a ranch, doing physical labor, unwed and with child. She'd likely faint at the very idea." Her smile faded. "Though I sometimes wonder if she misses me. Dr. Peterson said she was concerned. Mothers often love their children even when they don't approve of their choices," Noah said. "My own mother writes monthly, still trying to convince me to return to Missouri, though she knows I never can. Do you miss it? Your home?" "Sometimes. But I've made a new home here." Noah reached for one of the bridles, his fingers brushing Catherine's. Neither pulled away immediately. "Home isn't always where you're from. Sometimes it's where you choose to be, with people who accept you as you are." The baby chose that moment to kick vigorously, and Catherine gasped, pressing a hand to her side. Noah's eyes widened in alarm. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she laughed. "The baby's just very active today." On impulse, she took Noah's hand and placed it against her belly. "Feel." The intimacy of the gesture struck her too late, but Noah didn't pull away. His expression transformed from surprise to wonder as the baby kicked against his palm. "That's amazing," he said softly, his voice rough with emotion. Catherine looked up to find his face much closer than she expected, his blue eyes intent on hers. For a breathless moment, she thought he might kiss her and realized with startling clarity that she wanted him to. Instead, Noah gently removed his hand and stood. "We should get you back to the house. It's getting colder." That night, Catherine lay awake, replaying the moment in the barn. Had she imagined the tension between them? the look in Noah's eyes. She placed her hand where his had been, feeling her child move beneath her palm, and wondered about the impossibility of what she was beginning to feel for Noah Kendrick. The last weeks of February brought a brief thaw, enough to clear the pass to Telluride temporarily. Noah made the journey to town for supplies and mail, returning with news that made Catherine's heart sink. "Your father was asking about you," he said as they sorted through the supplies. Not directly, but questioning Sam while he was picking up feed at the general store. Catherine stilled. "What did he want to know? When you might be returning to town? Your condition?" Noah's expression was carefully neutral. "Whether you've had any visitors?" "He's worried about scandal," Catherine said bitterly. "Not about me." "Perhaps," Noah acknowledged. "Or perhaps he regrets his harshness." People sometimes act from pride, then find it difficult to admit they were wrong. Catherine shook her head. "You don't know my father. He never admits being wrong about anything." She changed the subject deliberately. "Was there any mail for the ranch?" Noah hesitated before reaching into his coat pocket. "One letter. For you, actually." Surprised, Catherine took the envelope. The handwriting was unfamiliar, the postmark from Nevada. With trembling fingers, she opened it to find a short note and a bank draft. "It's from William," she said, voice hollow as she read. "He says he's married now to his employer's daughter. He apologizes for the unfortunate situation and offers this money to help with any expenses or difficulties that may have arisen from our acquaintance." Noah's jaw tightened. "The man has a gift for understatement," Catherine laughed humorlessly. "He doesn't even ask if there's a child, just sends money to ease his conscience and expects that to be the end of it." "What will you do?" Noah asked. Catherine stared at the bank draft, a substantial sum that could provide security for her and her child for some time. She could leave the ranch, find a place where no one knew her story, perhaps claim to be a widow. "I'll return it," she decided abruptly, tearing the draft in half. "I want nothing from him." Noah caught her wrist gently before she could tear it further. "That money could help your child." "My child will have what I can provide through honest work," Catherine said firmly. "Not charity from a man who abandoned us both." Pride and something warmer flashed in Noah's eyes. "You're a remarkable woman, Catherine Zimmerman." The way he said her name sent a flutter through her that had nothing to do with the baby's movements. Early March brought warming days and treacherous nights as temperatures fluctuated wildly. Catherine's time drew near, and Mrs. Holbrook began preparing in earnest boiling water for clean linens, organizing her midwifery supplies, ensuring Catherine rested adequately. The labor began on a clear, cold night. Catherine woke to a sharp pain and a rush of fluid, crying out involuntarily. Mrs. Holbrook was at her side almost instantly, having taken to sleeping in a chair in Catherine's room as the time approached. "It's starting, dear," she confirmed after a quick examination. "First babies often take their time, so try to stay calm." Noah's anxious face appeared at the doorway. "Should I ride for the doctor?" Mrs. Holbrook shook her head. "No time and no need. I've delivered more babies than that young doctor's even seen born. But send Sam to town at first light to let him know in case there are complications." The labor progressed through the night, with Catherine alternating between periods of intense pain and exhausted dozing. Mrs. Holbrook remained steadfast, offering encouragement and practical assistance. Noah paced the hallway outside, occasionally bringing fresh water or taking away soiled linens, his concern evident but respectfully contained. As dawn broke, Catherine's labor intensified. Mrs. Holbrook positioned herself at the foot of the bed, instructing Catherine when to push and when to rest. Outside the door, Noah had stopped pacing and simply stood with his head bowed as if in prayer. "One more good push, girl," Mrs. Holbrook encouraged. "The baby's almost here." Gathering her remaining strength, Catherine bore down with determination. A moment later, a thin cry filled the room. "A boy," Mrs. Holbrook announced triumphantly, quickly cleaning the infant and wrapping him in a soft blanket. "A fine, healthy boy." Tears streamed down Catherine's face as Mrs. Holbrook placed the tiny bundle in her arms. The baby's face was red and wrinkled, his head covered with dark hair. As Catherine marveled at his perfect fingers and the surprising strength of his grip on her finger, Mrs. Holbrook opened the door to invite Noah in. "Come meet the newest resident of the Kendrick Ranch," she said proudly. Noah entered hesitantly, his eyes immediately drawn to the small form in Catherine's arms. The expression on his face, wonder, tenderness, and something deeper Catherine couldn't quite name, made her heart swell. "He's perfect," Noah said softly, coming to stand beside the bed. "Would you like to hold him?" Catherine offered, surprising herself with the gesture. Noah looked startled but carefully took the swaddled infant, supporting his head with practiced ease. "Hello, little man," he whispered. "Welcome to the world." The baby squirmed, opening eyes that were the unfocused blue of all newborns, and Noah smiled, a full, unguarded smile that transformed his face completely. "What will you name him?" he asked, returning the baby to Catherine's arms. Catherine had considered many names during her pregnancy, but looking at her son now, only one seemed right. "Matthew," she decided. "It means gift of God, because despite everything, that's what he is." Noah nodded approval. "Matthew," he repeated. "A good, strong name, Mrs." Holbrook shooed Noah out to complete her post-birth care of mother and child, but the connection formed in those moments remained, strengthening in the days that followed. Recovering from childbirth while caring for a newborn proved challenging, but Catherine found unexpected support from the entire ranch. Mrs. Holbrook handled many of the infant care duties when Catherine needed rest. The ranch hands fashioned small gifts for the baby: a carved wooden horse, a tiny moccasin rattle from the Ute woman who occasionally traded at the ranch. And Noah made time each evening to sit with Catherine and Matthew, often holding the baby so she could eat or simply rest her arms. 2 weeks after Matthew's birth, Dr. Peterson arrived unexpectedly. The snow had finally cleared enough for regular travel to resume, and he had come, he explained, at Mrs. Zimmerman's insistence to check on her daughter and grandchild. "Your mother is most anxious for news," he told Catherine as he examined the baby. "She would have come herself, but your father forbade it." Catherine's heart clenched at the thought of her mother wanting to see her to meet her grandson. "And what will you tell her?" "That you have a healthy son and are recovering well," Dr. Peterson replied, rewrapping Matthew efficiently. "She'll be relieved. She's been quite concerned, though unable to express it openly due to your father's position." The doctor hesitated before adding, "Your father's stance may be softening, however. There's talk of the railroad expanding its operations in Telluride. William Bennett's name has come up as one of the surveyors returning to the area. Your father has made inquiries about the possibility of legitimizing the child should Bennett be persuaded to do his duty." Catherine stiffened. "William Bennett has no duty to me or my son. He's married to another woman now, as he's taken care to inform me by letter." Dr. Peterson looked surprised. "I see. Your father was unaware of that development." He cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Nevertheless, he asked me to convey that, should you wish to return to Telluride, arrangements could be made to minimize public awkwardness." "You mean hide my shame?" Catherine's voice was sharp. "No, thank you, doctor. My son and I are doing quite well here." "So I see." Dr. Peterson glanced toward the main room where Noah was visible through the open door, speaking with Mrs. Holbrook. "Mr. Kendrick seems most supportive." "He has been kind to us both," Catherine said simply. After the doctor departed, Noah found Catherine sitting by the window in her room, Matthew sleeping in her arms, her expression troubled. "Bad news?" he asked quietly, leaning against the door frame. Catherine looked up. "My father is apparently willing to minimize public awkwardness if I return to Telluride. He even thought to pressure William into marriage before learning he's already wed someone else." "And how do you feel about that offer?" "Insulted," Catherine said honestly. "He threw me out when I needed him most. Now he wants to manage the situation to protect the family name, not because he cares about Matthew or me." Noah nodded, understanding in his eyes. "What will you do now? You've recovered well, and the spring hiring will start soon in town. There would be opportunities for someone with your education and background." The question hung between them: was she planning to leave? The thought brought an unexpected ache to Catherine's chest. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "I hadn't thought beyond Matthew's birth." "You have options," Noah said carefully. "You're welcome to stay here, of course. Mrs. Holbrook considers you family already, and the men would miss Matthew terribly." He paused. "As would I." Catherine studied him, trying to read the meaning behind his words. "As a housekeeper, you mean?" Noah shifted, suddenly looking less certain than she'd ever seen him. "Actually, I had something else in mind." He moved into the room, taking a seat in the chair opposite her. "Catherine, these past months, getting to know you, seeing your strength and dignity in the face of abandonment, watching you with Matthew, it's made me realize something." Catherine's heart began to race as Noah reached for her free hand, holding it gently. "I care for you," he said simply. "More than I thought possible. And I've come to love Matthew as if he were my own." He took a deep breath. "I'm asking if you'd consider becoming my wife, not out of charity or obligation, but because I believe we could build a good life together." Stunned, Catherine struggled to find words. "Noah, I don't know what to say. I have nothing to offer, no dowry, a child by another man, a ruined reputation." "None of that matters to me," Noah interrupted firmly. "What matters is who you are, a woman of remarkable courage and compassion, a loving mother, someone I've come to respect and admire more each day." His blue eyes held hers steadily. "I'm not William Bennett. I don't make promises lightly. If you accept, I'm offering you and Matthew my name, my protection, and my heart, for as long as we both shall live." "But what about your future?" Catherine pressed. "You deserve a wife without my complications, the chance for children of your own. Matthew could be the first of many children if you want that," Noah said, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. "As for complications, I've faced worse. And there's nothing I deserve more than the chance to love you both." Tears filled Catherine's eyes as the full impact of his offer registered. Not a marriage of convenience or obligation, but one of genuine affection and respect. A chance not just for security, but for happiness. "Your family," she whispered. "What would they think of you marrying someone like me?" Noah's smile was tender. "My family starts with you and Matthew now. Everyone else can accept that or not as they choose." He squeezed her hand gently. "You don't have to answer right away. Think about it as long as you need." But Catherine didn't need time. In that moment, looking at this man who had shown her nothing but kindness and respect from the day they met, who had held her son with such tenderness, who offered not just his name but his heart, she knew her answer with absolute certainty. "Yes," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "I would be honored to be your wife, Noah Kendrick." The joy that transformed Noah's face was answer enough to any doubts she might have harbored. He leaned forward, careful of the sleeping baby between them, and kissed her for the first time, a gentle, reverent kiss that held both promise and passion. When they parted, both smiling foolishly, Matthew stirred and opened his eyes. Noah reached out, letting the baby grasp his finger. "Hello, son," he said softly. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the ranch. Mrs. Holbrook decorated the main room with early spring wildflowers, and the ranch hands stood as witnesses. The minister rode out from Telluride, bringing with him unexpected guests, Catherine's mother and younger sister, who had defied Judge Zimmerman to attend. The reunion was tearful but healing. Mrs. Zimmerman couldn't stop marveling at her grandson and, to Catherine's surprise, warmly embraced Noah. "Thank you for seeing the worth in my daughter when we failed to," she told him quietly during the modest celebration afterward. "I hope someday her father will recognize his mistake as I have." "She's where she belongs now," Noah replied, his arm protective around Catherine's waist. "But she'll always be your daughter and Matthew your grandson. You're welcome here anytime." As spring bloomed into summer, Catherine found herself thriving in her new life. Marriage to Noah was everything she could have hoped for, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared work and joy, and a deepening love that surprised her daily with its intensity. Matthew grew strong and happy, adored by both his mother and the man who had chosen to be his father in every way that mattered. In July, a letter arrived from Catherine's father, stilted and formal, but acknowledging Matthew's birth and expressing cautious hope that he might someday meet his grandson. Catherine wrote back with equal caution but left the door open for reconciliation. By October, news came that William Bennett had indeed returned to Telluride on railroad business. Catherine felt nothing at the information, no lingering hurt, no regret, not even anger. Whatever she had once felt for him had been completely overshadowed by what she now shared with Noah. "Are you curious about him at all?" Noah asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset while Matthew slept inside. "About what might have been?" Catherine shook her head. "Not in the slightest. His abandonment led me here to you. How could I regret that?" Noah smiled, pulling her closer against the autumn chill. "Still, if he ever comes around, then you'll be polite, as you always are," Catherine finished for him, "while I introduce my husband and explain that William's bank draft was unnecessary, as my son has everything he needs, most especially a father who chose him." The first snow fell early that year, dusting the mountains with white in early November. As they prepared for another winter, this time as a family, Catherine reflected on how completely her life had transformed in just 1 year. From shame and abandonment to love and acceptance. From uncertainty to purpose. From isolation to family. On the anniversary of the day Noah had found her standing alone with her carpetbag in Telluride, Catherine presented him with a gift, a leather-bound journal in which she had written their story, from that first meeting through their wedding and the months beyond. "So Matthew will know," she explained as Noah turned the pages with gentle fingers, "how we became a family, how love can find you when you least expect it." Noah pulled her into his arms, his voice rough with emotion. "How a man can find everything he never knew he wanted on a cold day in Telluride." That night, as snow fell softly outside their window and Matthew slept peacefully in his crib nearby, Catherine and Noah lay entwined beneath warm quilts, whispering plans for the future, the spring crops, the cattle drive, perhaps a brother or sister for Matthew someday. Not the life Catherine had once imagined for herself, but infinitely better, a life built on choice rather than obligation, on love freely given rather than social expectation. "No regrets?" Noah asked, his fingers gently tracing the curve of her cheek. Catherine smiled in the darkness, her heart full beyond measure. "None. This is exactly where I'm meant to be." As winter settled fully over the Kendrick ranch, the small family within remained warm and secure, bound not by blood or obligation, but by the stronger ties of love, respect, and choice. For Catherine, who had once believed her life ruined by one mistake, and for Noah, who had left his old life behind to build something new, the future stretched before them full of possibility. And for Matthew, growing strong in the embrace of parents whose love for him and each other defied convention, there would never be doubt about where he belonged. Their family had begun with a chance meeting, an act of kindness, and the courage to see beyond society's judgment to the hearts beneath. What had started with Noah's simple declaration, "My family starts with you," had blossomed into something neither could have imagined when they first met on that autumn day in Telluride. As the years passed, the Kendrick ranch prospered, and their family grew. Catherine and Noah welcomed 2 more children, a daughter with Catherine's spirit and Noah's blue eyes, and another son with his father's steady nature and his mother's quiet strength. Matthew grew into a thoughtful young man who carried both his parents' best qualities and considered Noah his father in every way that mattered. Judge Zimmerman eventually relented enough to visit his grandchildren, though relations remained formal. Catherine's mother and sister became frequent visitors, especially during the holidays, gradually healing the breach that had once seemed permanent. And every year, on the anniversary of their first meeting, Catherine and Noah would stand together on the porch of the home they had built, watching the sun set over the mountains that had witnessed their beginning, grateful for the twist of fate that had brought them together and the love that had made them a family.